Hi, everyone, and welcome to Friday. You know what time it is. It's time to talk about coffee, chats, and communication. I'm so thrilled to be with you here today. Mia, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well today, albeit a little cold, obviously, as you can tell. I'm dressed for it, but that's really good.
I'm so excited, Mia, because we're kicking off our guest speaker series, and we have our first guest speaker here today.
Good morning, ladies.
There he is, Douwe.
Thanks for having me. Very excited about this.
We're quite excited. And I mean, already our watchers are going to love the fact that you've got a ton of bikes right behind you. That's very cool.
Yeah, the snow is keeping them indoors a little bit right now, but looking to head out for a little fun session over the weekend and play around in the cold a bit. But figured we'd stick with the theme. And, you know, the bikes in the background, I noticed you always bring very special coffee mugs and coffee cups. Figured I'd do the same. So to join you today, my little espresso cycling cup, wearing the rainbow jersey. The rainbow jersey collar stripes here indicate World Championship. The World Championship cycling and their discipline gets to wear the rainbow jersey for that year. So cool. Considering myself world champion coffee drinking.
Very cool. Cheers to you, Douwe. I'm taking a lesson from the Queen, and Mia's taking a lesson from the French Quarter there, I
see. I'm still picking them up from all my travels. I'm still missing it.
So thanks for joining us today, Douwe. The reason we wanted to have you is we know that you're an expert in sort of the customer experience landscape within the utility sector. And we'd love to have your take on how utilities really transformed during the pandemic.
Yeah, it's been quite a whirlwind. And what in the end, and I'll talk you through some of the steps, but what in the end didn't really surprise me, but it reassured me is how seamless this transition has been for a lot of the utilities. And it really made me realize more so than I do on a day-to-day basis, how environmental health and safety is part of the DNA of utilities. So I'm specifically active in the water utility industry. And it's part of what we do every day in running operations, in our field crews, visiting homes with customers, for example. So we had to make a lot of changes. And initially, mid-March, I specifically remember Friday the 13th, obviously what other day, Friday, March 13th is when our company decided to basically stop a lot of things that we were doing. That was the decision that, pandemic arrived at the Northeast and we would have to adjust operations. And that meant that over that particular weekend, we transitioned all our call centers to work from home, for example. We stopped, over the weekend, and that was quite an operation, obviously. Similarly, we stopped doing work with customers in their homes. Normally, we visit them for inspections or meter changes or things like that. Now, anything that included face-to-face contact, we kind of stopped doing. But it also had a massive implication of educating customers and communicating with them what those changes meant. So we can unpack that a little bit as well. But the primary focus was continuation of service to the communities that we serve, because water is an essential service. It always is in any situation. And when this pandemic hit and so much emphasis was put on washing your hands and hygiene and cleaning, ensuring and reassuring our customers that water was going to be there, it was going to flow, there was not going to be any shutoffs, it was safe to drink. That was really the core focus, seamless continuation of those services.
Do you think, Douwe, the fact that, as utilities, you're always ready for the next snowstorm or the next hurricane, right? Some sort of outage. You have that plan in place. Do you think that helped you all in this instance?
And
tremendously.
Before you answer,
go ahead, Mia.
Even though you've got snowstorms and hurricanes, you don't necessarily have your call center staff working from home. So, how do you manage that in such a rapid pace?
Well, in a way, we were prepared for storms. Like, this crisis is different. The origin is different, obviously. But also when speaking with some of the other utilities in our industry, most of them were prepared for situations like this, where they have to rapidly move their customer service teams to work from home, because when a hurricane comes in and takes out all the power in the call center, the need for decentralized operations is something that they were very well prepared for. Same in our case, we were able to do this in a couple of days. And in a way, we were lucky that we've been able to invest in modern technologies that would facilitate this. If your call centers were still running on hard phones that were sitting on desks with copper wires going to every individual cubicle, this would have been pretty much impossible. In our case, we were lucky enough to have transitioned already a few years ago to a fully cloud-based contact center solution. So as a result, the only thing we had to do was make sure that everybody had their workstations, their laptops at home. So right now we have over 100 agents working from their kitchen counters, from their bedrooms, from their living rooms, wherever they may be, but it works seamlessly. So there's a few things to touch on what Liz just said. The industry, I think, is very well accustomed to responding to crisis like this, whether it's a storm or a pandemic like we're in right now. And technology and innovation helped a lot, keeping up with investments on that front. Really allowed us to do that. And I'm pretty proud of how seamless we were able to make that transition.
And you guys really should be, because when you look at other industries like banking, insurance, financial services, they really struggled to make this change to work from home. It was a big effort, a big lift. And in many instances, because to your point, they hadn't necessarily thought about having a disaster plan that meant literally moving the office, right, to a work from home environment. They didn't necessarily have that technology and that infrastructure to do so. So you did talk about a point that this entire chat is all about communication. And so you've seen a shift, a big shift in what you've had to communicate to your customers throughout this 9-10 month period. Why don't we talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, I think initially, from my perspective, and I'd love to hear what you have seen in other industries as well. From our perspective, I would say that initially, meaning March, April, there was this massive need for education and reassurance. Nobody really knew what this meant, what was going on. So the initial focus, and we were taking it day by day to figure out what to communicate and how to communicate based on interactions that we were having with customers, questions that were coming in, and that ranged from, can COVID spread via water? Like, just to reassure people that our product in its core was safe and that it was actually critical in this situation for cleaning and hygiene. But those kind of questions. And then several states that we operated in went into pretty severe lockdowns, and maintaining this critical infrastructure with all the mains and all the pipes, the whole distribution network in the ground needs to be maintained. So our field crews had to go out there on occasion to do critical infrastructure maintenance work. And in some cases, they faced some backlash from the public to say, you're supposed to be at home. What are you guys doing here? Why are you out here? And so then we had to educate them on two fronts. Like, this is critical to make sure that the water keeps flowing. And two, we understand your concern, but when you do interact with our teams, please keep your distance, because they were coming right up to them and talking to them and trying to get an understanding of why they were out there. So that was very early on. There was this massive focus on education and reassurance.
So I think that's what's different about what you were doing in the utility space compared to other industries, where you had to keep the water flowing and this had to keep going, and you were focused on education, where other industries were essentially either shut down, retail, for example, or financial services. The service has to continue, but it wasn't really about education because you could always do everything online. And so their communication seemed lost in their attempted empathy, like the COVID-19 communications that we got from every company that you ever looked at. And it didn't really mean anything. Like, we're concerned for your safety, but it was lost in terms of what I was going through or what you were going through. And I think in the utility space, it really was about education and what it means for you. So it was a very different communication in terms of what you were going through and the questions you were getting.
Yeah, I agree. And in addition to the education, I think the reassurance part, it extended pretty quickly beyond the safety component. We all know how many millions of people lost their jobs immediately after the lockdown. Many industries have been hit severely from an economic perspective. So in our case, that means that many of our customers suddenly lost the ability to pay for their bill, or to at least pay for their bill on time. So part of that early messaging also included said, we know we're all in this together. We know what you're facing. And in our industry, the one end collection tool that we have, if customers after several months are unable to pay their bill in a normal pre-pandemic situation, would be to potentially turn off their water supply at some point in the future. So same as with other industries, if you don't pay for the product, eventually you're not going to receive it. Now, in this case, we went all out with messaging to reassure people. So we understand what you're all going through. Don't worry about shutoffs right now. Like if you're unable to pay your bill, we'll continue to work with you to find ways to help you. But we're not going to turn your water off, no matter how bad it gets for you. So that was part of that reassuring message as well. Not just water quality, not just crisis response, but to make sure that they knew that they could count on their water.
And that's the key, right, to good communication, Douwe, is that you're communicating about all aspects of what affects the customer, right? So I think you guys got it right. We saw a lot of people in the utility industry do really good things with their communications throughout the pandemic, and definitely things that other industries can learn from.
Yeah.
So what would you say now going into this next phase of the pandemic, right? We're starting to see a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, hopefully. What do you think is the next phase of communications?
Well, I think I like what you just said, that some other industries could potentially learn from how some utilities responded, because normally it's the other way around. Like utilities are not, let's say, at the cutting edge of customer experience. And we're if you go back just a couple of years, I think most of our customers, the expectation level from their utility, they would compare it to interactions with their local municipal office. And we are catching up. Our customers' expectations are growing rapidly, often driven by excellent experiences in other industries. Those same expectations are now transposed onto us to say, if they can do it, why can't you? So I think something similar, what will be happening is that the crisis will act as an accelerator mostly. So trends that we were already seeing are accelerated by a couple of years. And this includes in our space, things like personalized services, personalized communications, making sure that we get messages to our customers that are relevant to them, to their situation. And specifically on the utility industry, I think we'll see a continued focus on something we touched on already a little bit earlier, and that's supporting the low-income customers and making sure you offer plans and messages and solutions that are tailored to them. What we've seen traditionally in many utility industries is that the communication has been very broadcasty in nature. So it's all residential customers get this message, all commercial customers get that message. And we're already starting to see a shift in the companies that we work with, so other utility companies as well, but also from a regulatory perspective, a desire to offer more tailored messaging, very much focused on helping customers with solutions that are relevant to them, whether it's customer outreach plans, whether it's financial support plans, all based on information that we're expected to have on those customers. I think that'll be a massive shift. Yeah.
I think that's a message that actually holds, we hold very close to our hearts in terms of hyper-personalization when talking to customers. And interesting that the utilities are now actually focused on hyper-personalization. Mm-hmm. And it brings to mind something that the IDC said, that over the pandemic, the laggards in communication and technology actually became the front runners. Because they knew that they had to do it and there was nothing stopping them. And I think that the utilities are definitely within that realm of you've surpassed other industries and now you're focused on hyper-personalization, which may not be the case in other industries. So I love that. Yeah. And that could be a topic for another conversation because it's definitely something that should be a focus.
definitely, I think we're going to leave that for another way to get you back on here, Douwe. We'll talk all about hyper-personalization opportunities within utility communications. I like that topic. So with that, everyone, So with that, everyone, thank you, Douwe, for coming, for being our first guest. And we were so thrilled to hear about what you've seen as the trends over the past 10 months and your view to the future. So for everyone watching, have a wonderful Friday. And to the two of you, cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Happy Friday.